In today's show, we're doing season reviews for Matisse Thybulle and Rob Williams. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. As Locked On Blazers, your team every day. Today's episode, indeed, is late because it's a holiday and I had an internet outage at my home. American holidays and modern inconveniences that push this one back a little bit, but thanks for rocking with me. Today's show, we're going to get into the Matisse Thybulle and Rob Williams season reviews. We are doing this for every player on the roster, running through everybody. We're not going to do the two-way guys because there's just not enough there for you, but we're going to run through all of the regular players in the roster. We've done 10 of them. If you're looking for the rest of them, they are in your feeds, whether you're an audio listener or a YouTube viewer. But what we do is we talk about what they did last season. We'll have a visit from Michael from the past, talk about best and worst case scenarios that I set back in September in my season preview series, and then we'll look ahead to what's next for both of these gentlemen and everybody on the roster. So let's get into it. Let's talk Matisse Thybulle. We're talking two defensive specialists today that just didn't play very much. They played a combined 35 games, but their future with the Blazers, it's they're relatively likely to stick around at least. So let's talk about what they did and then look ahead to what's next, starting with Matisse. Matisse appeared in 15 games, averaged 7.5 points, 3.5 boards, and 1.9 assists to go along with 2.2 steals and 0.6 blocks. He shot 47.7% from the floor, 43.8% from three, and 46.7% from the free throw line. He started 5 of those 15 games, the final 5, and played about 21 minutes a night, 20.8 minutes per game. His season took a while to get started. He had knee surgery in mid-October, and he was expected to return in about a month. So he was going to miss, you're going to miss the beginning of the season, but you're supposed to be back around late November because he had surgery at the end of October. So, 3 to 4 weeks, Matisse Thybulle is expected to be back in late November. And as he's ramping up, with about a month later, in late November, he sustained a severe right ankle sprain that was supposed to sideline him for 3 to 6 weeks. The Blazers finally release an update. Now, finally, about 2 months, a little over 6 weeks, basically the 6 weeks mark, in the middle of January 11th, the Blazers released an update on Matisse Thybulle. And the update was that he wasn't ready. He was going to still need a little bit more time. A Blazers team source at the time indicated that there was no setbacks. Matisse Thybulle just needed more time, right? It was just like, we thought he was going to be ready in 6 weeks. He's not. He needs a little more time. That was January, and the official press release said that Matisse Thybulle will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Okay, so, early February, we'll get to see Matisse Thybulle. No, 2 months later. 2 months later, Matisse Thybulle finally makes his debut. We did not hear an update from him after that. He missed another 2 months and finally made his season debut in the middle of March after missing the first 67 games of the season. But Matisse showed up in a big way. In his first game back, he played just 6 minutes off the bench in a Sunday afternoon matinee against the Toronto Raptors, but he had the game-sealing block. Admittedly, he had that game-sealing block after he kind of blew the coverage on the late out-of-bounds play by the Raptors, but he recovered to block what would have been a game-tying three-pointer, swats it, swats the jump shot. Blazers get the win. He gets a big smile and says, "Whoops," but also, "You're welcome." Because the dude, he makes plays. That's what he does. To wit, the next day, he played 22 minutes in a game against the Washington Wizards, and he had 5 steals. So his season debut plays 6 minutes, game-sealing block. His second game, he plays 22 minutes and still has 5 steals. Dude makes plays. It's what Matisse Thybulle absolutely does. 5 of his double-figure scoring games this season 5 of his 15 games he scored in double figures this season, including he had hit 5 3-pointers in a home loss against the Cavs. He hit multiple threes in each of his final 4 games. Matisse Thybulle shot the ball well. In the limited minutes, Matisse Thybulle did exactly what you want. He shot the ball really well. Like I said, 44% from 3 and 50% over his final 4 games. Obviously, a tiny little sample size. And he made plays at a really high level. Averaging 2.2 steals, but on a per 36-minute basis, 3.8 steals on a block. That's almost 5 steals and blocks combined on a per 36-minute basis. One of the great defensive playmakers comes in and makes plays at a very high level. Matisse Thybulle didn't play. We didn't see very much of him, but the little bit that we did see was like, yeah, that's exactly the dude you want to see. We'll talk about more best and worst case scenarios and what's next for Tease, but he only appeared in those 15 games, and those 15 games was almost to a T what you would hope the best case for Matisse would look like. Let's talk Rob Williams. Rob's season also got off to a slow start. He was coming off a knee injury. He had a knee surgery in last November in his first season with the Blazers, but he was supposedly going to be ready to go. And during training camp, he sustained a grade 1 hamstring strain, and he would miss the first 9 games. So, early October, mid-October, a hamstring strain. It's like, man, Rob just can't get right. And that would kind of be the theme of the whole year. But when he does make his debut on November 8th against Minnesota, he plays 17 minutes, has 13 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Hello, welcome to the game, Rob. It's like, he's playing limited minutes, but if he's that type of productive in limited minutes, it's really special. On the year, Rob Williams just appeared in 20 games, averaging 5.8 points, 5.9 boards, 1.1 assists, shot 64% from the floor, 33% from 3, including hitting his first career 3-pointer in that season debut against Minnesota on November 8th, and 88% of the free throw line. He averaged 17.6 minutes a game and started 3 of those 20 appearances. And so after that debut he makes in November, the Blazers were pretty cautious with him, right? The plan was coming into the season to never play him on back-to-backs. I am under the impression that Rob Williams will probably never play a back-to-back again during his NBA career. And the Blazers, that was the plan. It was like, he's not cleared for back-to-backs now. He's never going to play on consecutive days. So they're always going to be a little bit cautious with him. And he wasn't ever going to play big minutes, right? Because 1, they had DeAndre Ayton. 2, they were trying to kind of figure out what they were going to do with Donovan Clingan early in the season and playing him with Rob Williams. And so there was always going to be, when the Blazers were fully healthy, just an availability of minutes challenge with getting Rob on the floor. Plus, they were extremely cautious with him. And then he got concussed. On November 25th against the Grizzlies, he sustained a concussion, and he missed 2 weeks and 7 games. So then he comes back after the concussion, and he plays in 3 games, and then he sprains his ankle against San Antonio on December 21st. He missed 8 of the next 10 games trying to sort of get right with that ankle, and he returned to the active roster in mid-January, only to be sidelined again by a right hand injury. He was listed as with right hand soreness on a couple games in late January, and then also by late January, something changes. For the first time in a couple late January games, he gets his first DNP CDs. That's did not play coach's decision. It was his first games where he was technically available and Don McClingan played ahead of him. To that point, all year long, Rob Williams had been, if he was healthy, he played. There were some times when they would be like, oh, it was clearly a Clingan night, and Rob would be inactive. Like if he wasn't going to play, if they were going to go another direction, he would just straight up be on the inactive list. But in late January, there was a couple times when Rob was getting these DNP CDs. So he's dealt with an ankle injury, he's dealt with a hamstring injury, he's dealt with this concussion and a hand. But importantly, none of the knee stuff. The knees have been the thing that have bothered him all year long, and to this point, through January, all of the little stuff that had been nagging him, and obviously, I don't know how the sort of chain of your body works, but ankle, hamstring, hand, concussion, none of it is knee stuff, even though it had been, he had been all over the injury report. And the trade deadline is February 6th. It comes and goes, and Rob Williams not traded. The idea was that they were being really cautious with Rob because specifically they were going to trade him, right? Because he was going to be on another team. They were going to try to deal him, right? He was going to be helpful somewhere else. And maybe they weren't going to get this big hefty package, but a couple second round picks and Rob was going to go play for another team. That was the assumption. I don't think it was ever specifically reported, but it was heavily assumed by multiple parties, including some reporters who were relatively plugged in, that Rob was going to be on the move. February 6th comes and goes. Rob Williams is still on the team. And on February 8th, a couple days later, he leaves the game early against the Minnesota Timberwolves after just 8 minutes with a right knee injury. Blazers saying, hey, we're just being cautious. It's a tweak to his right knee, but he leaves the game and he doesn't play the final 2 games over the All-Star break. Then he comes back after the All-Star break and he plays 25 minutes against the Lakers and he's really good. Right after the All-Star break, he plays a very solid game, one of his highest minute games, just one of 2 games all season long where he played over 25 minutes. Never hit the 26-minute mark this season, but he played over 25 minutes. And then he misses the following game with what the Blazers at the time called right knee soreness. He does not play after that. The first game out of the break, he does not play with what they're calling, with knee soreness. And the Blazers told reporters that there was a little swelling in Rob's left knee. This was not the right knee that he had injured against the Minnesota Timberwolves a couple weeks prior to that. This was the other knee. They're saying, there's a little bit of left knee swelling his left knee. Billups tells reporters, and that they're just. He said at the time he didn't know how cautious to be, or how worried to be, but they were going to be cautious with him. So that's a game against. Billups tells reporters that. Prior to a game against the Jazz on February 24th. And then after that game, the injury report changes from soreness to sprain. And on the February 26th game against the Pistons, when Rob Williams is listed as out, his injury is no longer soreness. It is more of an acute injury, a sprain. And he would not play again for the remainder of the season. That game against the Lakers, the first game out of the break, was his last game of the season. A month later, the Blazers announced that Williams had undergone arthroscopic procedure to address inflammation in his left knee and was expected to make a full recovery and will miss 4 to 6 weeks. His season was done. And now he puts himself, he heads back to another surgery, another frustration. He's played 2 years with the Blazers. He's played very limited minutes, and he's had surgery on both knees, a right knee in November of 2023, and now his left knee in March of 2025. Let's talk best and worst case scenarios, because Rob Williams, just the season that he had, clearly hit a worst case scenario type of thing, because we're still talking about injuries and knee surgeries and all of that. But I want to talk about Rob. I want to talk about Matisse Thybulle, and I want to do this with a visit from Michael from the past, because I think talking about what happened or what we expected, in September through the lens of what actually happened now that we're at the end of May helps kind of color our expectations and what we thought heading into this season. So let's do that in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about Monarch Money. Look, do you ever look at your bank account and think, where did my money go? Where hath it gone? Because you're living your life and you're buying stuff. You're buying groceries. You're going to restaurants. You're entertaining yourself. And it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, all your investments, and all your spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Gone are the days of juggling various apps to look at your checking account, your savings account, your various investments, and maybe mortgage payments or other things that you owe. Instead, Monarch Money brings it all into one place so you can check your finances, track your spending, and you can plan long-term and short-term savings goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, and the code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right. So what I want to do in this second segment is visit with some predictions that I made back in September. If you're a new listener to the program, welcome. What a fun time to join at the end of May. But if you're a long-time listener, you know that in my season previews, I do best and worst case scenarios. These are best case scenarios within reason and worst case scenarios without injury. So I want to visit from Michael from the past, those predictions I made back in September, to kind of set where our expectations were. And then we'll talk about where these guys landed and where they're headed. We'll start with Matisse Thybulle. Michael from the past, take it away. What's the best case scenario for Matisse Thybulle? It's that the 2 half seasons of positive shooting that he has shown for the Blazers in about 55 games for the Blazers, where he has been an above average 3-point shooter in the league, it sticks around for 65 games. The best case scenario is that Matisse Thybulle, who is a unique NBA player, one of the great defensive playmakers across the league, perhaps no one is a better off-ball disruptor, and certainly no one at his size is a better off-ball disruptor than Matisse Thybulle. He is a dude who's going to get in the passing lanes. He's going to block shots from behind. He's going to take weird angles. He's going to bait guys into throwing passes they don't want. He's going to sag off you so you think you have a jump shot and somehow block your jumper. He's one of the great jump shot blockers in the league. He's just a really good defensive playmaker, and the best case scenario is that not only can he play that side of the ball, but the shooting that he has shown flashes of in 2 different stints with the Blazers sticks around for an entire year. And the best case scenario is that with a clear understanding of what he needs to do and the maturity that comes with entering season number 6 in the league, Matisse Thybulle becomes the knockdown shooter on just stand still, catch and shoot shots. He becomes a knockdown shooter on those shots and allows himself to be the fully realized best version of Matisse Thybulle. And his play and his success creates a confusion about who is part of the plan going forward and creates a logjam on most nights because Matisse Thybulle's good enough to play and he starts the season on the edge of, on the back half of the rotation. The worst case scenario is basically the Matisse Thybulle that played the second half of last season. It's a guy who's a below average 3-point shooter, loses a little bit of confidence on offense, and then you don't feel as good about playing him as much. So so he's limited. He naturally limits his own minutes because of what he brings on offense. And so he's like he's a defensive specialist. He is a guy who comes in and can make plays. And if he's rolling and has it going on offense, he can stick. But if not, he's playing 10 minutes a half and he's a 20 to 22 minute a night guy because you just need to score more in the modern NBA. And because of Matisse's unique defensive style, it's not like he can guard every single player in the league. He's good at what he does, but he's not like a sit down and lock you up type of guy. And the worst case scenario is that Matisse Thybulle is a dude who is not quite good enough on offense to unleash what he's really good at on defense. Thank you, Michael from the past. So I think Matisse Thybulle really flirted with that best case scenario, right? Because he shot so dang well. The problem is he only played 15 games. Matisse, in several small stints with the Blazers, has really showed okay, maybe this dude can really shoot. His first half year when the Blazers got him at the trade deadline, he shot really well. The next season, in the first half of that season, he shot really well, and then the calendar flipped, and he really struggled to shoot, and he lost some confidence. And then this year, he comes in and plays just 15 games, right? He played such a small sample as to be meaningful for this dude has improved a great deal as a shooter, but he shot so well. It is indeed March and April basketball, right? I don't think it's hopeful, it's truly hopeful for, okay, this is what Matisse can be, but it's far from meaningful. But if you were you can't, it could be meaningless, but it can't be, can't be a negative. He shot too dang well for it to be negative. So I think it's more like an incomplete or an NA, he's not applicable for the best and worst case scenarios, but certainly this was the stylings of a best case scenario for Matisse Thybulle on the court because the defensive playmaking was still there at an extremely high level. He remains one of the best defensive playmakers in the league, one of the most disruptive off-ball defenders in the league. He's unique. He's interesting in that way. And if the shooting comes around, and he's been very open about that's going to be the swing skill for him. If it comes around in for an 82-game season, then he's a player. But if he's not, he's relatively limited as an off-the-dribble guy and a playmaker on offense. If he's not, then that becomes the question for Matisse. How does he fit? We don't know after this season, but I do know that the 15 games he did play, the very brief period that he did play, looks a lot like more like the best case scenario than the worst case scenario. Let's talk Rob Williams because let's land on where we were heading into Rob's second season with the Blazers. Take it away, Michael from the past. Best case scenario is that he's an NBA player again. Period. He's able to play in, the majority of games, let's call it 65 plus games, and he looks like himself. I don't think the best case scenario is that Rob Williams comes back and is the defensive player of the year, right? He's going to be a backup even if he's fully healthy. But the best case scenario for Rob Williams is that he's available to play, capable to play, and he shows flashes of what he can be. And as he gets into the season, he continues to be able to be available and continues to build up and get better. And he becomes very intriguing in one of two ways, either as a potential trade partner or trade target for other teams, or it's like, oh, this dude can play, and the Blazers are happy to have him because the point of having a basketball team, for the most part, is to get good players on that basketball team in order to help you win. The best case scenario is that Rob Williams is Rob Williams, and we talk about him as a basketball player and not as someone who is dealing with the challenges of not being able to play basketball. The worst case scenario is that these are worst case scenario within reason and without injury. So we're not going to talk about injuries with Rob Will. It's obviously part of it. It's the undertone of all of this. You get it, but that's just not it's not how I do these things. The worst case scenario is he's just not quite there. And then the conversation about Rob Williams is not the basketball player that he is. It's the basketball player that he used to be and the basketball player that you hope that he is in the future. But when you talk about his production, you are not talking about the present. You are talking about timelines in the past and timelines hopefully in the future. The worst case scenario is that Robert Williams' eventual value as a basketball player is theoretical and not functional. The worst case scenario is that you are talking about a Rob Williams to come and a Rob Williams that has been, because the Rob Williams that is just not the same player. Thank you, Michael from the past. Rob clearly hit his worst case scenario, and the whole situation with him just feels so much heavier. Like it is. He's played across his 2 seasons in Portland a total of 26 games, and he's undergone surgery on both knees in 2023 and again in 2025, the right knee followed by the left knee. It's just it feels like a serious thing with Rob. It feels like this is more just the sort of hard truth of his situation, as opposed to like, oh, okay, but maybe this could get right, and maybe like it just feels more final with him. Not that his like NBA career is over, but that this will just be the truth for him moving forward, is that he's just not going to be able to play big minutes, consistent minutes into the spring, all of those things. It stinks. And I think that is the sort of my takeaway from the Rob Williams experience, is that I've liked him as a person and been hopeful for his impact as a player. And some of the impact stats suggest that he could be really, really good. Like, he's been helpful, but particularly on the defensive end, he's such a good connector on that end as a defensive anchor. And he's even though he doesn't have almost any individual offense other than just being a role guy, he's been helpful to the Blazers offense in the little time that he's played. But not being available to play is a big deal, and it's part of his story, and it remains part of his story, and it's just been true for him as a Blazer, as it was true for him prior to being a Blazer. So let's talk about what's next, because with Matisse and with Rob, they're both potentially and likely under contract for next season. So what is their future with Portland and beyond? Join me in that third segment. We'll talk all about it. Still a pass first point guard, still Mike Richmond, still listening to Locked On Blazers. Finishing up our season reviews for Matisse Thybulle and Rob Williams. Matisse Thybulle's contract situation is that he has a player option for next season at $11.5 million, $11.55 million. The end of a 3-year contract he signed as an offer sheet with the Mavericks that the Blazers then match. This is the final year of that deal. I can't imagine a situation where Matisse Thybulle opts out of that contract and enters free agency. I don't think he would get close to that number in free agency, would be my guess. He is a unique player and an interesting player, but he is not the type of like definitely going to play in the play like as an 8-man, part of an 8-man playoff rotation that gets mid-level money on the market. Mid-level money is about $14 million. He's making about 11.5. He's going to take the money. So Matisse Thybulle, it's an opt-in date of June 24th. We're about a month out from that. You're listening to Monday, May 26th show, although it's coming out pretty late in the afternoon. But we're about a month out from him having to exercise that option, but I'm almost certain that he will. I would be very, very surprised if he doesn't. It would probably just be in pursuit of a different job, like a different job in a different city, as opposed to a bigger payday. Because I see it as unlikely that he would get a payday. So the Blazers will have Matisse Thybulle on an expiring contract, which could be conceivably tradable. Either, he could be, if you get traded when you have the player option, you automatically opt in. You don't get to trade and opt out. So it could be tradable, prior to that as we approach the draft or on draft night or beyond or into the season. If he's on the team, Matisse Thybulle's probably going to play because of the defensive impact he has. Like the defensive impact stats for both these guys, and we'll start with Matisse, suggest that he's a monster. He just played so little as it to be like, like this, he's really good on defense and you can kind of see it, but it is not, again, it's just not predictive in the sort of in its sample size. But also we know what Matisse has been like throughout his career. He's a very, very impactful defensive player, and particularly in terms of defensive playmaking, blocks and steals. Like he's good at it. I'm not worried about that. It's the other side of the ball and kind of the sort of overall offensive trade-off with offensive and defensive impact. But if he's here, you assume that he has a role based on where the roster stands now, albeit a role behind Denny Avdia, behind Toumani Camara, certainly behind Jeremy Grant, just because of the way that those things shake out, and behind, if he's going to play 2 and 3 mostly, behind Shaedon Sharpe. So like, and the duo of Anfernee Simons and Scoot Henderson, like he's in the back half of the rotation, even despite being an impactful defensive player. And I think that is just there's a lot of moving parts between May when I'm doing this and the fall. So I don't want to project too much, but like as it stands right now, he's like a guy has a small role as a defensive specialist. Rob Williams has a guaranteed contract, $13.3 million this season. It has some escalators for playing games and making all defense and winning games as well, making the conference finals and the finals, that he's very unlikely to hit with the Blazers just because they're probably not going to win 2 playoff series next season. And the likelihood of him only missing 13 games seems relatively low, but I'm rooting for Rob to hit that number, play 70 games, get your money. He'll be an expiring contract as well. I think we're past the point where Rob Williams is an interesting trade piece. Right when the Blazers acquired him, it was reported by Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, who had a very sort of close ties to the Blazers front office at that stage, that the Blazers planned on keeping Rob. They liked him. They liked him as a basketball player. They didn't have interest in trading him. At the time, it was like, they do have interest in trading Malcolm Brogdon. Obviously, Malcolm Brogdon played out that full season, and Rob only played 6 games his first year before undergoing knee surgery. But the Blazers valued him as a player. I think the rest of us, maybe the media members around the team, and certainly many, many fans of multiple fan bases, assumed that the Blazers would value Rob as a trade piece. But I think after the how little he's played after the last 2 years, and how and his situation, the idea that you're going to get like a bunch of value back for Rob seems unlikely, right? It's just he's not. His situation is sad, right? It's unfortunate, I should say rather. But an expiring contract could be used in a trade at some point. What I think you're trading for with Rob is giving someone $13 million of expiring money. I think that is his value. Obviously, the Blazers have with Matisse Thybulle and with Rob, and throw in Anfernee Simons and DeAndre Ayton. Obviously, those are much larger contracts, but they have these expiring money to deal with. Depending on what their appetite is for taking back future money, say like money 2 and 3 years down the line, expiring money could be really valuable depending on what it is. It's just like, do they at this stage in their build want to take back long-term money? That's not necessarily how they've done it, but they have been, generally speaking, the front office has been more apt to take on players as opposed to picks. So I could see a world in which they're down, right? That they're like, cool, this expiring money gets us basketball players, and that is typically what they have valued in trades. It's just the idea of like, at one point, it's like, you could probably trade Rob Williams for a first-round pick at some point, even heading into the season. If Rob plays well, he could be traded for a first-round pick. You just want Rob to get back and play basketball. That's what I'm rooting for personally. I just want him to be able to play basketball at some level, with some regularity, and hopefully his body can cooperate. But the idea that he's expiring money. Thybulle is he's an interesting piece for in the right situation, but I think he's relatively situation specific because of his unique skill set. And if he blossoms into a really good shooter for an extended stretch, that changes the calculation a great deal. I do think he could have value, but the Blazers essentially traded Matisse Thybulle traded 2 seconds to acquire Matisse Thybulle, and I imagine that is roughly his trade value now. I don't think it has significantly blossomed since then, although obviously he's an impactful and quality defender. But again, he kind of just he's a specialist, and those versatility more valuable than specialties in the modern NBA. So what's next? I kind of expect both of these gentlemen to open the season right now on the roster, but obviously they are certainly imminently tradable because of it's not big money, and because of they're not long-term, they're not under long-term contracts, imminently tradable over the offseason, could certainly be concluded in a number of trades. But I don't think they have much standalone value on their own, which would in some ways limit the likelihood that they get traded. That is going to do it for today's show. We got 4 more of them the rest of the week. I'm going to try to get to 5. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to record some pod. I'm going to double up on some pods. Apologies, and I appreciate your understanding with the delay on this one. Tell your friends about the show. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.